Hello there, this is Brian, and here is Maverick, and welcome to an episode of Vehicle Reviews. In this episode of Vehicle Reviews, we will be looking at the 2019 Jeep Cherokee Limited. So before we get started, let's go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe for future content if you haven't already. So I picked up this 2019 Jeep Cherokee Limited for a week-long trip to and from North Carolina from Pennsylvania, which gave me the opportunity to take this vehicle on some really interesting terrain, including the famous Blue Ridge Highway along the Appalachian Mountains. So without any further ado, let's get started. When I think of Jeep, I think of the vehicles developed by Willis Overland and Ford, named the GPW, or Jeep for short. The vehicle that you can take to and through just about anything. But of course, times change, and that nickname, later a model, and now a brand, has branched into a variety of SUVs that have taken it further and further away from its roots. But at its core, the original concept of the Jeep is still there, even in this refreshed 2019 Jeep Cherokee compact sport utility vehicle. So let's start out by saying it. This is a beautiful vehicle. It took what worked for it in its last iteration and scaled back some of the styling that was perhaps a bit too much. You can tell just looking at this vehicle that Jeep is carefully repositioning themselves from just another SUV manufacturer to something that rivals luxury brands such as Land Rover, Volvo, BMW, while still maintaining that affordability to remain in the traditional segment of the CX-5, RAV4, and Ford Escape, and now the smaller Bronco. The front end was refreshed, and the daytime running lights and headlights were recombined into one unit. 18-inch wheels come standard with this vehicle. One of the first upgrades that I would make would be replacing these with something along the lines of a Bridgestone, a Falcon, Wild Peak, or a Geolandar all-terrain tire. The ground clearance is about 8.7 inches, though to me it looks closer to 10 inches throughout much of its underbelly. And it offers that rugged yet slick off-road look that you normally see in vehicles offered by Land Rover, of course, and the Grand Cherokee in its own Jeep lineup. This model has the power tailgate, which you can open using the key fob, a button, or a foot actuator. The rear cargo area is not huge, but definitely serviceable. As you can see, my larger 28-inch Samsonite suitcase fit in here very well with some room to spare. It definitely could also fit a Husky package, which you'll see later in the video. The tailgate interior button is a bit out of the way here on the interior, and I have to question if something accidentally hit that button, would it open up that while you're driving or sitting? So to sum up exterior styling, I think it's a really good step forward. And it needs it, though. It's a pretty competitive segment. You figure at the top end, it competes against the Land Rover, Range Rover Evoque. And at the lower end, the likes of the Ford Escape and now the small baby Bronco. So quite a competitive segment. And you have three engine choices for this model. There's the 2.4-liter i4 standard four-cylinder engine at 180 horsepower. There are two 270 horsepower engines in the 3.2-liter V6 and the 2-liter four-cylinder engine, with the four-cylinder engine coming in at just under 300 pounds-feet of torque. So quite a bit of difference there as far as engines go. They all come with a 9-speed automatic transmission. And assuming you got the all-wheel drive and not the two-wheel drive model, that would come with the Select Track all-wheel drive system. And of course, this comes with a standard battery, which I'd probably swap out myself. I know most people don't pay much attention to the batteries, but an AGM battery can make your vehicle go quite a long way as far as durability, but I can understand they are pretty expensive, coming in at around $300 per battery. And if we make our way in the back here, one thing that we definitely note is that Jeep wants us to stay hydrated. I think there's a total of about 8 to 10 cup holders throughout this vehicle, and pretty well sized at that too. And as you can see, this vehicle has leather inside, and it's pretty good leather. It's not too plush, but it's also not too firm too. It seems to be pretty good quality overall. In terms of rear seating, you definitely sit up higher in the back seats. I'm about 5'10", and you can see my vision is definitely on the higher end. Now, as you can see here, my head is basically hitting the top of this at 5'10". Granted, I'm a bit of a big bear, but I wouldn't put more than probably kids back here full time, which I think is the intended target for this size vehicle. It would have been nice to see a little bit more headroom. I could make do back here for maybe a 45 minute drive at best, but beyond that, I'm really going to be slouching or just reposition myself just to get comfortable, so which is not ideal, obviously. The driver and passenger seats are where this Cherokee really shines, and that makes sense. I feel this model is positioned at more of as a driver-focused vehicle and not necessarily a family or crew hauler like the Grand Cherokee or new Wagoneer are. And in terms of front seating, the ergonomics of this vehicle are fantastic. I took an 8-hour drive along the Appalachians and arrived with no back pain or muscle discomfort. I didn't notice any blind spots at all while driving, and everything is kind of where I'd expect to find it, which is a good indication of design, with a few exceptions, which I'll get into. The design itself, you can see, is very modern and it's borderline luxurious, though some of the plastic trim pieces are a bit underwhelming, but not terrible. The center display unit is one of the best in the business, and it offers all the gadgets you would need at the touch of a finger, and it's really just very impressive. The steering wheel and its controls make a lot of sense, and it feels very good. The instrument display itself in the center here, it gives you so much information regarding your vehicle specifications, tire pressures, your fuel mileage. It's fully configurable, so you can switch to the digital speedometer display, and it just makes sense. The center stack here, I feel, is one of the best in the business. It's really easy to navigate, but this does lead me to one of my first complaints, and that is the heated seat and heated steering wheel option. Notice the steps I have to get to just to get to that function, which, when I get into the vehicle, I want to go in, hit that right away. I don't want to have to wait for the car to turn on, then the center display to turn on, then navigate to a second or third level just to turn the heated seat and the heated steering wheel on. And this brings me to my second complaint, which is the backup camera. Why is the backup camera with the heated seats? Now, I guess what they did is, if you notice on the bottom here, this is under a separate control module, so I guess you can access it faster, but it doesn't make sense to couple those together to me. And when I'm driving, and especially if I'm off-road, I'm going to use that rear camera from time to time. So I want to be able to access that pretty quickly. So I know those are minor, but it just does annoy me. I feel it could be better designed, and they could probably just as easily fix that with a software update. So the climate controls and volume are right down here as dedicated buttons, which is good. Actually probably would have made more sense to put the heated seat buttons down here, but c'est la vie. This also has all-wheel drive and the select track system, which allows you to pick what type of terrain you're going to go through, and the vehicle automatically adjusts. This model does not have the locking rear differential, which I believe you have to go into the trailer haul to get. And as you can see here too, you do have the ability to control the gears, which is important if you're going off-road, or you just kind of want to play around with it. This also has memory seats, and as we switch over to the overhead, we can see how the sunroof opens and closes. Sunroof comes in two parts, with the front portion having the ability to open, and as such it covers in two stages as well. It definitely opens up the vehicle and lets more natural light, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on the time of the day. I found myself closing this at noon, as it actually let in too much light. And overall, it's a nice option. And as anyone who has had an opening sunroof will tell you, another benefit is in the summer months you can open this up and just let all the hot air right out. But me personally, I haven't had one in a while, and I really don't miss it all that much. I definitely enjoy the other comforts like the heated seats and heated steering wheel more. So how does this handle? On the road, really well. It isn't as quiet as a true luxury vehicle, but it also isn't as louder as like an economy-focused SUV either. The handling is very good, definitely responsive. I could really feel the road as I put the vehicle through its paces, especially down on the Blue Ridge Highway. This base model 2.4 liter engine, it was actually surprisingly responsive, and it really had no issues on the highway keeping pace. There were a few times when I wish I had just a bit more pickup, but this engine actually did a really admirable job, especially on gas mileage. I actually averaged about 26 miles per gallon on my 1,200 mile road trip. I personally would probably opt for the Turbo 4 or the V6, and you may want to do the same if you're a spirited driver like myself. But in terms of performance, I think this engine is probably fine for most uses. And in terms of off-road, slow and steady wins the race. I've seen some negative reviews on the 9-speed transmission being sluggish to shift. I personally found it actually kind of responsive. I really didn't notice any difference between the normal and sport mode, though I'm guessing that's probably more the engine than the transmission. So take that with a grain of salt there. Now, I know you probably want me to take this on some off-road torture test. Well, this is a rental that someone will end up owning someday. I did drive through some Carolina mud, which I did get, through, but it did struggle at times. Personally, I blame that on the tires. Bottom line is that this did not get stuck even with these highway-focused tires. And I did do some rural areas in Virginia that were a little tricky, though nothing too crazy, which you can see here. Given the ground clearance and the pedigree of this system, you'd be hard to find depressed anything that couldn't get through, actually. So, final verdict, would I buy this? Chrysler-owned vehicles have not had the best reputation for reliability. That being said, I don't put reliability as the end-all be-all of my decision-making on purchasing a vehicle. I mean, it's something to consider, and I had one mechanic tell me to steer clear of the 2.4 liter, as they've been notoriously coming back for consuming oil. All in all, though, I'm a big believer that most modern vehicles are much more reliable if you just take care of them. And by take care of them, I mean more than just change the oil. You need to change the differential fluids, transmission fluids, and stay on top of anything that doesn't sound right when you're driving, or else small annoyances can possibly become expensive problems in any vehicle, including the most reliable ones. In terms of size, my kids are grown and out of the house, so it's just me, my wife, and my dog. And for that, I think this vehicle is perfect in terms of size. Sure, the Grand Cherokee is larger, but smaller vehicles are also more nimble. And I can't emphasize how comfortable this vehicle is. It feels solid, and the interior seating is top tier. Visibility, fantastic. Overall, I'd say yeah, I think I'd buy it. I mean, don't expect this to go toe-to-toe with the Jeep Wrangler, as this is probably more of a gateway off-roader and not a hardcore model. Though, it actually may be a half-decent overland vehicle, though. So, all in all, definitely recommend this vehicle. I had such a blast driving this back into North Carolina, and the next time I pick up another vehicle to drive, who knows, maybe I'll miss this one, depending on what they give me next time. So, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, be sure to click that like button. It really does help out our channel, and subscribe for future content if you haven't already. And try to stay tuned. I try to post 1 to 2 videos per week. And in the interim, until I see you next time, get out there and make your own amazing outdoor adventures. And until then, Take care.